Hello, this is Thursday, June 13th, and this is the June update. I have a couple of announcements, some really exciting news that I'd like to share. So bear with me. First, I would like to talk about an upcoming a book that came to me about a month ago that I'm currently working on and hopefully will come into fruition. I've received, hopefully will come into fruition sometime this year or early next year. I've received a number of comments, um, reviews, as well as emails sent to me from Christians after reading after reading the Unbound Soul. It was a surprising, a surprising amount of attention regarding the book from Christians, because it wasn't written from a Christian perspective, so to speak. But many Christians claim to have found a great value in the book, and that it actually helped their Christianity a great deal and gave them a lot of clarity. Now, of course, I think a more fundamentalist view of Christianity might reject many of the teachings in the Unbound Soul, but those who are, let's say, spiritually Christian and not so much religiously Christian. The foundation is a spirituality more than a religious formation. Find great value in the Unbound Soul because it's really talking at a principle base, not at a form base. And so that was really a surprising turn of events. And on a regular basis, I'll get questions from Christians regarding Christianity, and they're typically questions I hesitate to answer because I don't identify as Christian. I don't identify as anything, just an expression of the universe, or an expression, if we were to use Christian terminology, an expression of God. But also through my reading of the Bible, it's such a mixed bag of information. There are certain statements that are undeniably rich with transformative power, seeping with truth, that anybody who has experienced, I would describe, what is the Godhead, who has had a transcendental experience with the Godhead, can see that those statements of Jesus, for example, are reflective of that more fundamental experience or truth. But then there are, just as many or more statements that indicate a lack of understanding. And of course, the Bible, the New Testament, wasn't written by Jesus, and he was just speaking, and most of the people that were listening to him would be peasants and illiterate Jews. And he doesn't have a microphone, so you got the first 2 or 3 rows of people who could possibly hear him, assuming everybody's quiet. And if not, then you got maybe the first row of people can hear him, and it's just like a game of telephone going back, through the crowd. What did he say? He said this, and people get it wrong. And when you're speaking, there's no capitalization. So when Jesus says "Son of Man" and they capitalize the S on "Son of Man," that's an interpretation of what they think Jesus meant, which may throw off the actual meaning entirely, turning it into a title when it may not have been. So there are a number of areas where there is a departure from the principle in the New Testament. And once you get into the works of Paul, it departs even further from the principles. And so I'd spent most of my life reading through the Bible, especially the New Testament, but I always had trouble getting through the works of Paul. Anything that follows, Acts would be the first book that follows the New Testament. The books of the gospel would be Acts, and in the book of Acts, there's a wealthy person who joins the church, and when joining the church at that time, you had to account for what you owned, and use it financially to support the church and to give up what you owned, essentially. And a man owned property, and it was worth a certain amount, and he claimed that it was worth a lot less. And if I recall, it was Peter recognized that he was lying, and the man was struck dead in the instant. Then his wife came in later, not realizing what had occurred. He asked her, and she also lied, and she was struck dead. And this is not reflective of the nature of God. That was malice. That was condemnation and judgment. It was not reflective of the teachings of Jesus Christ. Whether that actually occurred or not, I don't know. There's no way to know. But that sort of taint was repulsive to me. A person who has a deep spiritual connection to Christ. And so at some point in my life, I don't know, maybe my late 20s or early 30s, I reread that same passage, and I just could not bring myself to open the Bible anymore. And it was well over a decade before I was able to open the Bible again. It was during the writing of The Unbound Soul and taking key principal points from the New Testament to demonstrate the connection between the Unbound Soul's teachings and the teachings of Christ, as well as the teachings of Buddha and other religious sources. There's a common principle. I had essentially disowned the Old Testament, the Torah, and other writings of the ancient Hebrew, because in that God is depicted as being a jealous God, a angry God, a wrathful God, crushing children's heads, advising or commanding to crush children's heads, babies' heads against the rocks, and it's all kinds of really atrocious things. If you read it and you weren't already identified as Jewish or Christian, you probably wouldn't like that God, and rightfully so, in fact. And so I would no longer read the Old Testament. I wouldn't read anything beyond the Gospels, Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. But to my surprise, about a month ago or so, a month and a half ago, I couldn't sleep one night, and all night long I just couldn't sleep. There's nothing on my mind. There was no anxiety, just could not sleep. Then about 3 o'clock in the morning, I received what I describe as a mystical experience, a kind of download. And I could actually see a certain area within the Torah, which is the first writings of the Old Testament, essentially what you would describe as the book of Genesis. The specific thing that I found was in the book of Genesis. In this mystical experience, what it showed me was a certain area in the book of Genesis, which concisely lays out the principles of the relationship between man and God and where man has gone astray. And if this passage is misinterpreted, it's coded passage. And if it's misinterpreted, which it has been, the result is a great sense of separation between man and God, the fall of man, so to speak, and that our religious structures are all built off of this fundamental misinterpretation. And so I was shown the code that decodes these passages, and it's consistent and powerful and principle-based. And once you see that code, you can't unsee it. And then what you get out of understanding that is such a transformative knowledge, such a powerfully transformative knowledge and awareness, fundamentally an awareness of what is occurring within your own body, mind, that creates your sense of separation and your suffering. Once you see it, that suffering starts to lessen. The power of this passage, it's actually several chapters within the Torah that this focused on, and I can see it in this visionary state. The sentences highlighted that were key. And having not read the Torah in such a long time, I didn't remember, been maybe 10 or 15 years since I had read anything in the Old Testament. I didn't remember, I couldn't verify that this was true until I got up. So as soon as this mystical experience was finished, I got up and went into my office and opened my Bible and read those passages. And sure enough, they were written exactly as it was in the mystical experience. And I could recall where it was highlighted, and I understood the code, and I read it, and it had a fundamental meaning that was totally different from what I thought it had meant prior to this mystical experience. Because I had read those passages many times before, and they were always baffling to me. I couldn't understand them. And then once I understood the code through this mystical experience, the revelation of what it meant was so profound. And I would have to say that these passages are some of the most profound things ever written by the hand of man, and so concisely summarize the source of our suffering, our sense of separation, and so concisely point to the solution, to the heaven within that we're missing. I was utterly blown away. And so I've been working on that for the last month or so. It's currently at about 50,000 words. I don't know what the actual end size of this book will be, but it's going to be something that is so new and so powerful and so concise, and that I suspect was the actual foundation of Jesus's understanding of his relationship with God and life. And then when I read the New Testament based on that code, I can see the areas where it connects up and reflects that code very well, and the areas where it departs. It's very obvious to see where things had been transcribed incorrectly. The books were written 100 odd years after Jesus died, not by the authors, not by any of Jesus' disciples, but they are titled by the names of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, who were disciples. They weren't written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Most of those individuals would have been illiterate. And so they were written by other people, certainly word of mouth. And how much distortion there is, well, certainly a great amount of distortion, but it becomes very, very clear which passages were maintained or reflective of the principles of that code, and which ones are misunderstanding or mistranscribed or mistranslated. And so it's a really, really powerful tool to be able to walk through and see the transformative teachings of Jesus Christ that are actually applicable to your daily life right now. And so the book doesn't really go into the miracles. It doesn't go into the deification or worship of Jesus or God, for that matter, specifically. It really doesn't go into the religious aspects of it. It focuses on the passages within the text which are transformative to your life, and the practices that will help you to bring out the most of those transformative passages and the understanding that's hidden within. As Jesus said in the New Testament, the teachings are for those who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. The teachings have been intentionally veiled, and only those who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear will understand the fundamental essence of Jesus' teachings. The New Testament was written by someone who did not have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. And that's where the issues come. Written by people, individuals, maybe different individuals who did not have the eyes to see or the ears to hear. This code is transformative to the texts, and it's not written in a way that is meant to disrespect anyone. It's only written with the spirit of how you can make the most of the transformative elements within the Bible text, so that you can use the Bible itself to aid you in your path of awakening, in the path of inner purification and your reunification with God. And so that's an exciting work, and I'm looking forward to announcing eventually the publication of that work. In other news, some of you know last year I was running what I called live community meditation courses. They were weekly courses. That was $150 a month, and the courses were weekly, 45 minutes a class, and it provided time where we would meditate together, guided meditation, and then question and answer and some teachings. And there were a number of issues with the course on my end due to having very, very old technology, very old computer that wasn't able to stream the video very well, and that wasn't able to transcode the videos quickly. So it made it such that even when I did transcode, there would often be a syncing issue between the video and the sound. And so it made it quite unpleasant to watch the videos because my mouth would be moving and the sound would happen a second later or 2 seconds later, if the recording took it all. About a month or two ago, I had the realization that I needed to reinstate. I stopped those classes about 6 months in, but I needed to redo the classes, but in a way that would work, because the way it was before, for me to teach one lesson would be 2 or 3 hours of work later, just managing the technology aspect of it if I wanted to record it. So the classes were only live because that wasn't functional. And for people to be live at my time zone made it very difficult. Most people couldn't do it. And a very small audience of people that could participate. As well as I think the price point was higher than was ideal. And only being able to do this once a week because of the time that it took to do made it also not ideal. And the fact that the classes were not being recorded for later viewing made it even more restrictive as to who could join. Fitting 45 minutes into your daily schedule might be difficult for a lot of people, and doing it live even more so difficult. So with this realization and the comments of the students who took the class who really enjoyed it and who got a lot out of it, I mean, I've got really wonderful comments about how much it's helped people. But what I also recognize is that a lot of the point of the class was to establish a daily meditation habit or pattern. But what was happening is that people would set a goal and really not follow through on daily meditations. They might get 2 or 3 in a week, but not on a daily basis. But this process of awakening needs to happen on a daily basis. And being honest, it only happened for me because my teacher was there for me on a daily basis. I knew that when I went to the dojo, in order for me to succeed, I needed to meditate. And so he was there for me, creating that need. And so I would show up and meditate in order to succeed. And so being honest, we have to admit that a lot of us have the same issue. We need to establish a need to show up every day. And so my aim is to provide a meditation course that's live every day at my time, 7 a.m., but that's recorded and available for 24 hours following the live course, so that you can access it at least within 24 hours of it going live. And the access would be limited because it will be deleted within 24 hours. So if you don't show up, you miss it. The same way, if I didn't go to the dojo, I missed it. And that kept me going. And so my hope is that with the new technology, I can stream the video live with sufficient quality, and then as well as produce a recording and upload it to the website for those who couldn't attend live, but who can watch it on their time. There will be a comment section where you can ask questions, as well as, of course, check in every day when you join the meditation class. Just say, "Hey, I'm here. Have a great day," or whatever. So it creates a kind of accountability to show up. Something that we need is accountability. The courses, instead of being 45 minutes, would be more like 20 minutes, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and less teaching and more doing. Guided meditations with a total embodiment meditation method, very distinct from anything you've ever practiced, a method that will allow you to incorporate a deep, fundamental, connected awareness in your daily life during activities, not while just sitting. not while with your eyes closed, but while open, while sitting, while seated, while standing, while walking, while talking, while doing, while working. A prayer that you take throughout your life, a meditation that you take throughout your life. And so this is a very, very powerful development. I've upgraded my hardware and software, upgraded my website to be able to accommodate this. I'm hoping that it'll come out in July and that it'll be priced at a much less expensive. I think the way I had it before ended up being $12.50 per session. My aim is to see if I can't make this workable for the cup of coffee a day, for the price of a cup of coffee a day, about 99 cents, $1 a day. So I charge on a subscription so that it's very easy and convenient, that every month, $29.99 will automatically be charged so long as you remain in the program. And every day you have access to the lessons. And so that's really, really exciting. And with that daily practice, it gives your brain a chance every night to repattern, and which makes the process even easier. Every night, what happens is your brain, through what's called neuroplasticity, removes energy, removes resources from neural pathways which have not been used, and uses those resources to reinforce neural pathways that have been used. And so every day practicing the meditation is vital for your brain to actually repattern around meditation, so that the awareness that comes through meditation, seeps into your daily life, that transformative perspective. So for the time being, what I need is to test out the platform. I've got a couple weeks before July. I want to start this on July 1st, the live edition, but I need to test it out first. So I'm hoping that people will be drawn to participating in the test run. It's free, but it will require some feedback from you, as well as testing the subscription service. So you would actually join a subscription, and it will charge you a certain amount of money each day. And then once the testing's over, I will cancel the subscription and refund the money for everybody. So in the end, it won't cost you anything to do the testing, but that will let me know how the subscription service works. I don't really understand how it works, how I will be informed of who's joined and who hasn't, when they've joined and when they've left the subscription service. As well as I need to test the membership service, of course, the quality of the video and the audio, and a number of other elements, as well as the type of software I use for streaming the sessions. So whether you will be visible in the recordings. So for example, there's a certain format that I could use. It's a meeting format, almost like a conference room, so that you would be visible in the recordings and that you could live communicate with me in the chat room in the recordings. Or would a webinar format be the best way, so that only I am visible? Your audio would not be available, and you could communicate through comments or chats, but in the recording you would not be seen. So I'm not sure which is actually the better way to go. In any case, if you would like to be part of the testing, you can send an email to contact@richardhaight.net. That's HAIGHT, richardhaight.net. I'll leave a link. I'll leave the email address in the comment section below, or the description below, and within the next few days, and we'll get the testing up hopefully by the beginning of next week. So this is June 13th. We're talking about at least hopefully by the 17th, Monday, the 17th of June, 2019. And we'll run 15, 20-minute classes and see how it goes. And at the price point of $29.99, I'm hoping that will work. With advertising, it may not. I'm just going to do my best to try it out. I may have to increase the price, but we'll do our best. And hopefully, my goal is to make this as useful and profoundly transformative to your life as possible, so that you will want to spread the word about this, tell your friends and family, or anybody who's interested in spirituality, spiritual awakening, anybody who's interested in meditation, or just having a great start to your day, because this is going to be better than a cup of coffee. You're going to start your day on a positive note every day, and that's the idea. And that's transformatively powerful within itself, even if you weren't interested in spiritual awakening or spirituality per se. So for those of you who are interested, go ahead and, send me an email, or you could leave a comment in the below. Leaving comments or sharing is very, very helpful. That'll help to get the word out and get this program established much quicker. So for price of a cup of coffee a day, I can't think of a more healthy, transformative activity you could take part in. And I'd like to be there for you. And I could definitely use your support. So share, comment, send me email if you're interested, with the subject title, meditation testing. Meditation testing. And then I'll be sure to notice that email. I get a fair number of emails, and not all of them are pertinent to what I'm doing. So I kind of gloss over them, and the ones that aren't, what do you say, spam, that are actually relevant to the awakening path and to the books or to the teachings, I pay attention to. So if you could put the title, the subject, and meditation testing in there, that would be very, very helpful. And have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.